As much as it pains me to say this, before my daughter turned 17, I didn't feel any love for her. I didn't even like her, really. She certainly thought I did, but on the inside, I just couldn't feel anything but annoyance towards her. She was very manipulative and needed constant attention. I know that this is a common feeling in parents, but I feel so ashamed to actually say it out loud. Two particularly traumatic instances for me were one, where I was going through an extremely tough time and she wasn't there for me. She never gave me support or comfort that I needed, and there is no worse feeling than being betrayed by family. She was a teenager and old enough to know better. And two, there was a period when she was really pestering me to take her to a psychologist, and one time I caught her forcing herself to throw up. I didn't know what to do and felt completely helpless. She's 18 now and lots better. She almost never complains about anything and is always there when I need a shoulder to cry on. My two older children were visiting last night and we were discussing family memories, and while we were joking, I mentioned in passing to her, "You really fucked me up good." She asked what I meant and I told her about the two incidents I mentioned before. She got quiet and eventually said, I really needed your help back then and you just wouldn't. I told her that I needed her help too, but she came back with, "I'm your daughter." I told her, "Yes, and I'm your mother. What's your point?" She ended up going home with her older sister and she won't return any of my calls. Her older sister called and told me that I had really hurt her last night and that I needed to apologize. I personally don't feel like I owe my daughter anything. She abused me her whole life. Am I the asshole for not understanding?
I've been sitting on this story time. I've been absolutely holding it back just because I was like, can the people handle it? Because I could barely handle it. I still talk about it in therapy. And my therapist labeled this whole situation as new trauma. I had a best friend. And me and her were like this. We're like this. I mean, like, so much so that people knew us as best friends. We didn't do anything without each other. I, at first, was really cool with this. Because it was so fun to, like, have somebody who wanted to hang out with you all the time. Duh. But then it got, like, a little codependent, not as fun, less enjoyable. I never even went on dates alone. I mean, my best friend, she was always there. If I was hanging out with my boyfriend, my best friend was there. If I got out of class, I need to text my best friend, be like, "What's up? What are you doing?" And this was like fun when you're younger because you're like, oh, we're younger. It's fine. Who doesn't love hanging out with their girls 24/7? If my friends don't like my best friend and my boyfriend doesn't like them, then they can fuck off. And every single guy I did date while I was friends with her didn't really like her, not to her face or anything, but they would just be like, why can we not like spend the night together? Why will she not let us like spend the night in the room to be like intimate? You know, what is this? Why can't we just like hang out by ourselves, be alone? It's fine. And at the time I like always brushed it off. I was like, it's no big deal. Totally normal. She's just my best friend. We do everything together. But then I graduate. And my best friend was so distraught about me graduating that they were like, I'll just drop out. I'll drop out of college and I'll move with you and I'll just get a job and we'll be perfect. I was so sad at the idea of me and my friend like not being best friends anymore that I was just like, oh my God, this is perfect. I was moving in with my best friend from high school and I was like, oh, another person to like split the rent 3 ways. This is a dream come true. It was the worst fucking time in my goddamn life. I don't know what happened after we left that college campus, but my best friend turned into a fucking psychopath. I think a lot of the issues probably stem from the fact that we were moving in with my best friend that I had been best friends with since I was like 13, and I think that kind of intimidated her. She was like super keen on making us like the 3 Musketeers now, and I was just like, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. So basically all of her behaviors and how much she leaned on me, was codependent on me, transferred over to my other longtime friend as well. And she did not take this as lightly. We're all 3 living together. And to make this easier, because I've been saying both best friend, the girl from college, let's call her Raylan. And the girl from high school, my best friend who had been the longer one that I was moving back in with, let's call her Jackie. So the more that Raylan was like around me and Jackie started to point out, she was like, so I see you guys are super inseparable. You guys had such a fun time in college, but like, she's kind of like mean to you. And I was like, what are you talking about, Jackie? Raylan's my best friend. That's why she moved in with us. What could you possibly what are you talking about? And Jackie pointed out to me, she was like, do you not notice that she like insults you and argues with you like all the time. And I was like, what? Oh, I mean, are you talking about when she talks about like what would I do if I was as skinny as her? I think she's just being Raylan. And she tried to make me see it. She literally tried to, and she was being so sweet. She wasn't saying like, let's not be friends with her, X, Y, and Z. She was just like, you guys like fight a lot. Like, she's just always arguing with you, and she's kind of mean to you. And I had pushed it off. And then basically we are living longer in the apartment. And things kind of start getting a little harder. By that, I mean, Raylan has given up the idea of paying rent. And me and Jackie were paying most of the rent. And having to do things to pay the rent that I wouldn't even tell my fucking therapist. Okay? Things that scarred me. Just so I could have money to not get evicted. And it was getting to a point where Raylan had owed me a lot of money. I'm not gonna fucking lie to you. Over $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, maybe even fucking $5,000. That is how much money, because every single time we did something, if Raylan didn't have the money, Raylan was completely okay with asking us to pay for her. And this wouldn't have been bad if it didn't breach into like just thousands of dollars end up being owed to us. And then on top of that, we're paying for the water, the electricity, the rent, the dog food. We're doing so much. And I think I was so used to Raylan owing me money that it didn't bother me as much. But once Raylan started owing Jackie money, Jackie rightfully got pissed. She had not known this girl for God knows how long. And now she's already like racking up a check with her. And then one time, oh my God, this Jerry Springer shit. We are in the fucking room. Jackie had came to me earlier and she's like, look, I'm having to work multiple jobs. And like, I have no savings. I've never been in such a financial stressful position until now. I think we need to talk to Raylan. Wouldn't really have to wait, because Raylan was listening to us outside the door.
This is the story of the time I did makeup on a model, and she was one of the worst clients I ever had. Before I get into the story time, I just want to introduce y'all to my friend Hallie. I'm going to be doing makeup on her face today instead of mine, and we're going to be doing a purple e-girl inspired look. Okay, now let's get back to the story. This model was actually a close friend of mine a couple of years ago, and she had reached out to me as a local makeup artist to have me do her makeup for a special event. The model in question here was one of those girls who didn't really wear any makeup unless it was for a photo shoot or a very special occasion. That being said, she was used to having her makeup done pretty often. She had modeled in multiple magazines and has since then appeared in multiple online and in-store ad campaigns for several big-name brands. When she arrived for her appointment, she had already explained to me that she wanted to look pretty, but kind of like she wasn't wearing makeup at all. Believe it or not, doing a no makeup look was actually a pretty frequent request among my clients. Also, I want you to keep in mind that I had never done this girl's makeup before, and I just kind of assumed that she would be totally used to the entire process since she had gotten her makeup done so many times for photo shoots. A couple minutes before her appointment time, she had texted me to let me know that she would be just a couple minutes late. On this particular day, I had clients back to back to back, so I wasn't really upset about her being late. I was kind of excited to actually get to sit down and have a short break. Well, she ended up being almost 30 minutes late to her appointment. As soon as she did arrive, she asked me if I had anything to drink or anything to snack on because she was so hungry and parched. I went into my kitchen and grabbed her a bottle of water and some fruit, and when I came back, she was completely glued to her phone. Usually, I would advise my clients to keep their chins and nose pointed up towards the ceiling just to make it easier for me to get to their face. But no matter how many times I asked her to please lift her face, she was just completely glued to her phone. Even while I was doing her eyeshadow, she had her eyes open, and while I was working on her face makeup, she was eating the grapes and drinking the water like I wasn't even touching her face. I never want to be rude to my clients, and I always want them to have the most comfortable and fun experience as possible. I also try to avoid pretty much any confrontation, so I really didn't know what to do in this situation because half of the time I couldn't get to the part of her face that I needed to get to finish her makeup, and even if I could, her face was constantly moving from the chewing, texting, and drinking. Not only did I find this particularly difficult to work with, I also found it really rude. Because of all of the distractions, it ended up taking me about half an hour longer to complete her makeup. Keep in mind she was also half an hour late, and it actually ended up pushing back all of my other appointments for the day. At the end of the day, she absolutely loved her makeup and she gave me a tip. But after that, I've refrained from offering my clients any snacks or drinks if I'm about to do their makeup, and I still thought it was kind of rude. What do you think?
Okay, so story time at the time, I made all the boys in my grade cry, like all of them. Okay, so this was in 6th grade, and the way that the desks were set up in my classroom, it was like 2 seats facing like each other, so like 2 in front of each other. That was one table, right? Okay, so one day, I was sitting by myself, like next to me there was no one, right? But in front of me there was this kid, right? So then this other kid comes and he's like, hey, can I sit next to you? And I was like, no, can't you see my friend sitting right there? But obviously there was no one, right? I was being fucking sarcastic. So the kid looked freaked out and they're both looking at each other like, what the fuck? Because I had a dead straight face because like, I don't know, like I just did. And this was like towards the end of the school year. So we had this big field trip coming up to the science camp in the mountains, like in the middle of fucking nowhere. This was when I still lived in LA. So fast forward, we're already on the bus and they keep teasing me like about like my ghost friend, but I kept going with it. I was like, no, I'm so fucking serious. Like I see dead people. So once we get to the camp, all the boys go to a cabin and then the girls get split up into 2 cabins, right? So once we're at the camp, we start doing a bunch of camp activities with all the people, right? And I meet this girl and I get her to go along with it. Like I tell her that I'm fucking with them and she goes along with it. So then she starts telling them how she sees the person too, that I'm quote unquote seeing the ghost. So then those 2 boys start telling all the boys in the cabin how like this shit's real, like they're dead ass like seeing people, like this is freaky, like what the fuck. And I didn't realize how much they had told the other guys, like how much like they really like believed it, because to me it was still a joke. And it wasn't a big school, it was a charter school, so there was maybe only like 30 boys maybe. So this one night the camp leaders have us do this activity where we have to go in the middle of the woods, like pitch dark, and it's a group bonding activity, so we have to hold each other like by our shoulders and just walk in a straight line and basically go following the camp leader's voice. It was weird, but we did it. And the girl that was in on it, she was behind me holding my shoulders, right? So we start saying like, oh my god, like whispering like, oh my god, do you see those people too? Like, do you see this? Do you see that? Like literally freaking them out, and everybody was like listening. So then I didn't realize that everybody was like starting to for real get scared. So we get to a point in the activity where we have to walk, like it was maybe like 20 feet, like by ourselves. So like there was a line and then like one person had to go at a time and then meet the other person like 20 feet away. And this was like in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the dark. Like I'm talking like you couldn't even see your hand in front of you. So it's my turn to walk and I walk normal like the 20 feet until I feel like my friend, and then I stop, right? And then it's one of the boys' turn, and when he gets to us, he's dead ass crying, like bawling his eyes out, like, oh my god, I felt something grab my arm, I felt something grab my arm. Like they're all freaking out at this point. Literally, like I didn't realize that pretty much everyone was crying, like all the boys. But because there was so many people crying, the camp leaders had to turn on their flashlights and we all had to walk back to the cabins, right? Camp leaders didn't know anything, so the boys ended up snitching on us. And then the camp leaders asked us if we were for real, and I was scared to get in trouble, so I said yes, like I'm so serious. So they ended up splitting me and the girl up, and that night they read us Bible verses. Yeah.
I stole my best friend's boyfriend for fun and made everyone hate her. So it was my freshman year of high school, and me and this girl, let's call her Brooke. She was the sweetest and kindest girl ever. Everyone liked her. And that made me jealous. She had the perfect boyfriend, perfect friends, perfect body, hair, eyes, skin, family, everything. I was so over it. So I met this one girl named Ivy. We talked about how much she thought she was all that, and I got the idea. Why not change her life around and I could take her place? So me and Ivy decided to get makeovers and work out for the perfect body. We dyed our hair to what suited us best and went shopping for the newest clothes. The next day at school, all attention was on us. Everyone wanted to be our friend, and we looked good. I walked up to Brooke and said hi, and she looked in shock and said hi. She said we both looked great and she was happy for us. I knew she was jealous. I then said hi to her boyfriend and touched his shoulder and said hi. He then said hi and I winked at him. Brooke didn't say anything though, she was too nice for that. So I invited the whole school to a last minute party, and that's when I got my plan. You will not believe what happens next. Come back for part 2. I invited them to a last minute party I was throwing and they agreed to go. So this is when I made the plan. I decided to invite 2 boys to give her hell that they could do whatever to her since she rejected them in the past, and they agreed. It was around 8 p.m. when the party started. I had a 2-floor house, so the stairs kind of overlapped the first floor halfway, if that makes sense. Anyways, we continued having fun and the boys texted me to place her directly under the stairwell, and I agreed. So I brought her there with Ivy and we talked, and I thanked her for how much of a good friend she was. And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't look this good. She said thank you and basically took all of the credit. I texted Ivy the plan and told her to leave when I left, and she agreed. I told her I'll be right back and I'll get all of us drinks, and she said okay. I saw her and Ivy talking, and the Ivy said she'll be right back and to wait here, and she said okay. So she was just dancing by herself, and I turned around to get some punch, and then I heard screaming. Next thing you know, I turned around, she was covered in blood and some other stuff. I was shocked and confused. I texted the boys what it was, and it was pig blood and eggs. She then ran out crying. A couple of moments later, she sent me a text, and you will not believe what she said. Come back for part 3. So she ended up sending me a